The City of Albuquerque Public Art Urban Enhancement Division and Department of Arts and Culture proudly present Take Another Look. Built on the foundation of two city ordinances, Art in Municipal Places, and the Urban Enhancement Trust Fund, the Public Art Urban Enhancement Division provides funds to artists to create art for the public, as well as arts organizations for arts and cultural programming. Join us as we discuss everything related to funding artists in the public realm with host Joni Palmer.
Hello, I'm Joni Palmer, and welcome back to Take Another Look at Albuquerque's public art. Thank you for tuning in today for the first episode in this three-part series, during which we will explore a bit more about the background behind and the future use of the Public Art Census, the data and the report. In this episode, I am joined by Kent Swanson, Bernalillo County Public Art Coordinator. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Matt Carter has joined us again, and this time as Interim Public Art Urban Enhancement Division Manager, as well as his other job as Public Art Collections Manager. So thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be back.
All right. So today I will be talking with Kent and Matt about the county-city partnership that made the Public Art Census both possible and successful. And we'll be talking about the Bernalillo County program, which we have not talked about yet. So we'll dig into that. But a little bit of background. In episodes 13 and 12, so very, very many months ago, I talked with Denicia Monet Malone. She's the founder of Rook. She and her team were the public art consultants for the Public Art Census. We talked about how the Public Art Census could help both the city of Albuquerque and the county better understand the many public forms of creative expression, cultural equity, and spatial justice. Since then, the Public Art Census has been completed. We'll talk about whether completed is quite the right word. And the report is available on the public art websites, both the cities and the counties. So if you want to catch up a little bit about the conversation I had with Denicia, go to episodes 3 and 12 on our website. All right. So, Ken, let's just start. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be the Bernalillo County Public Art Project Coordinator. What brought you to that job, and what is it you do?
Sure. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you, Joni, for this opportunity, and thanks to all the staff at the City of Albuquerque Public Art for this collaboration. So very excited to be here. I have a background in studio art, studied printmaking as an undergrad, went on to study a master's in community and regional planning. I've worked as a planner with the City of Albuquerque for about 8 years, and then moved on to a position with the Open Space Visitor Center, which is a great facility on the west side, which has gallery spaces, outdoor, kind of a nexus of art and environment within the city of Albuquerque. So although I have an art background, I really was a planner for a number of years, but delved back into the art world with that position at the Visitor Center. And then when the position with Public Art became open, I applied. I wanted to really kind of get more into the arts, and thankfully I got the position, and I've been there for about 5 years with the county. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And what does this, and we'll kind of go back and forth with Matt in terms of, I mean, the titles are different, right? But I'm assuming the roles and responsibilities are the same. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the county? Sure.
Yeah, it's a very similar program. In fact, I kind of look at the county's public art program as the younger sibling of the City of Albuquerque's program. We were founded in 1992 with our ordinance. And it was amended in 1997, and we've recently amended it further to increase our budget to 1.5%.
Nice.
But really, it's the same mission in terms of funding, commissioning works of public art, purchasing existing works of art through that 1% of capital projects. And we have, of course, the maintenance that's associated with that. We have a volunteer arts board, similar to the city's, 10 members, And so the one difference I think, of course, is like we are geographically much broader, but our budget's a little tighter. And I would say those are the main differences that I see. And we also have one employee, myself.
Okay.
So I wear a lot of hats, but we also have support staff that I share with the Cultural Affairs and Marketing Division, and that's who I'm housed under. Public Art is with that division
Okay.
of the county.
So, and what is the Public Art Program's relationship to open space?
So with the Public Art Program and open space, there's not a strong relationship in terms of any properties that the Parks and Rec, which manages the open space division, there are opportunities to have public art there. So we just kind of work in parallel with all departments that have capital funding that would then receive public art. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But you
yeah.
probably know a lot of the folks still over in open space, so that does
Right.
help with that relationship building.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay, so you are the younger sibling, 1992. How would you characterize how the county program is different from the city? And this is, you were saying in terms of area extent, it's much larger, it's the county, but it's a smaller budget. What else is different? And Matt, if you have anything to throw in
definitely.
terms of the differences and the similarities.
Yeah, I think the geography is huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, like that's a big difference just in terms of we are as far as Isleta Pueblo, and including some of the Navajo Nation to the west side, South Valley, west side, East Mountains. So our geography is quite a bit vast compared to the cities, but our facilities are really spread out as well. So, but yeah, lots of similarities in terms of how the program is managed and the goals. So yeah, Matt, if you have thoughts on that.
And looking at it, we're with Albuquerque, we have 9 city districts, city council districts. The county has 5
commission districts.
Districts. And so, and the way the board is structured is a little bit differently too, because they have 2 representatives for each district commission district, and we have 1 representative for each city council district, and then we have 2 at-large members that can come from anywhere. And so we're an 11-member board, they're a 10-member board. Minor differences like that, but the ordinances are roughly about the same. The funding, the way the funding is generated through the general obligation bonds every 2 years, where 1.5% is added on to each bond purpose, and then that's how we get our funding from. Now, how we commission and how those funds are distributed is a little bit different. They have a little bit. Yours are more tied to new construction and whatnot, and ours are not necessarily tied to new constructions, but within city facilities and city properties and parks and along that line. So minor differences like that, but like Kent said, the way it's managed and the way you do the projects and the way you commission the projects are pretty close, through requests for qualifications or invitationals or requests for information types stuff. Yeah.
One thing that I think is interesting that maybe you could touch on a little bit more as well is the idea of like a temporary public art project. I think the city has really kind of navigated that really well in terms of, funding projects that may not require as much maintenance, because that becomes a huge thing as programs grow, like the maintenance requirement of public art.
It does.
So
and that 0.5 increase is definitely a huge deal.
It is a huge deal. I mean, the way we started, I mean, in the reason why we started moving a little bit towards some temporary aspects and we're able to change our ordinance to allow to increase funding for temporary is because the shift in the public art field in general, you'll see that across the board, that a lot of programs across the country are looking at that, and they're struggling with the same thing of commissioned work and with longevity of it and the cost that it takes to maintain those works. So we were able to update our ordinance to add temporary as well as digital works into our collection, and the way we navigate that is that the works that are being installed go away, but we have documentation and imagery that then becomes part of the collection, and that's kind of the tangible, the deliverable that comes in. And so then that allows us to then kind of capture that moment in time through that, because some of it is about a moment in time and the experience of experiencing those works, not necessarily multiple times, but that one time, and that's important. And I think that's we're seeing that I think across the country in terms of how other programs are responding to those types of just the shift in general on public art.
Especially in mid-sized cities, larger cities. And so I have two questions then for you, Kent. Is how large is your collection compared to the cities?
So right now we're closing in on about 700 works of art in our permanent collection, and we have a small, what we call the Betty Sabo inventory, which are pieces that were funded by sources other than the 1% or the Art in Public Places, and those could be works of art that were created by student groups or that were actually existing in county buildings prior to the formation of the public art program. So we have a way to funnel those artworks into the collection and be able to maintain them and represent them as county artworks. So yeah.
And how larger?
We're kind of hovering around 1,800 works. I say hovering because in certain series, if you count the individual objects themselves, it's a little bit more, but when you talk about diptychs, triptychs, or something within a series, sometimes there's multiple works within that, and so we're looking at around 1,800 works of art in our collection. About 360 of those are permanent outdoor works. That includes outdoor sculptures or murals or something like that, and that's and it's continually growing on that level too. And the rest are two-dimensional works that are scattered throughout the city facilities, libraries, community centers, city hall, and other public buildings.
Okay. Well, that gives us a lot in the Albuquerque area, a lot of art of all different forms.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, for the Public Art Census, how did that, and we've talked about it from the city of Albuquerque side, but from the county side, how did this all come about? How did the Public Art Census come about?
Yeah, so when I first started in 2020, a couple months before the pandemic, there were conversations happening on our board that really started to expand when all the kind of upheaval happened with the pandemic and politically. And within public art, there was a lot of conversations about looking at arts equity, diversity of the collection, diversifying opportunities for artists, supporting the creative economy through the challenging times of the pandemic. And Sherry Brueggemann, with the public art program with the city, was also having those conversations with her board. And so through just the kind of collaborative public art world that we live in the city, we got to talking about how can we navigate that and work towards more arts equity. And other cities have done like an artist registry, but we wanted to look at ways, with the county, we wanted to look at ways to how do we understand our collection better and how do we understand public art in our city and county better, have kind of a baseline to work off of to aim towards those goals of more arts equity. And Sherry had been in conversations with Danicia from Brooke, and it just seemed like this perfect fit. Like, we had looked at other models that other cities had done. Sherry had done a lot of research, and then she brought that up to me, and it just seemed like a natural fit for achieving both of our goals. So we jumped all in, and started that collaboration. 2022, 2023.
Yeah,
Time
something
flies.
like that. Yeah, it's been a long process, but it's a worthwhile process for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess, so one of the things in terms of, and here's the beautiful report, and you can, there's a PDF of this report on
Yes.
both of your websites. It's worth taking a look at because in terms of the data visualization, it's really easy to go through and get a sense of what the data is that was collected and what it actually means.
And there are Spanish and English versions available
Yeah.
online, as well as the printed versions in
Yeah.
Spanish and
And
English.
some of the printed versions that we have will be distributed to the library throughout the library system. Some will be
nice.
permanently. You might not be able to check them all out, but that's going to be up for the how they do how the library manages those things. But so they'll be available. The actual printed versions will be available too, if someone wanted to take a look at it at the library.
Oh, great. I love the collaborations with the library.
Yeah.
So in the description, earlier in the episode, as I was talking with Denicia during episodes 3 and 12, the many forms of public creative expression, cultural equity, and spatial justice. How is that related, these many forms, to a Percent for Art program? So the canvassers, and I'm going to be talking with some of the canvassers in our next episode, they weren't just looking at Percent for Public Art.
No.
So can you explain how you fit all that together for city and county?
Yeah, that was an interesting process because there are a lot of different definitions, both within the public art world and regional definitions of public art. So sitting down with the steering committee and having conversations of so are there descansos, would that qualify as public art? Is that respectful if those are documented as public art? They can be incredibly beautiful, ornate works that have a specific purpose to honor someone's memory, but navigating those definitions as well as things like lowriders.
Yeah, I was going to say lowriders. That there was a large conversation about lowriders,
Right.
and because that just the painting in general and the amount of work that they do in just the paint schemes that they have on their cars is extremely artful and extremely, and the fact that they move throughout the city, and they're in the public, and so it was like,
Right.
well, how do you capture that? How do you identify that? Because it's a moving
Right,
piece,
right.
so it's not
Yeah.
static. So, if you capture, I think correct me if I'm wrong, if a canvasser came across a lowrider that was stationary and they documented it, that was okay. But if it was moving, it was a little bit. There's a little bit. It's like, well,
Right.
there was a little bit of a conversation about how to identify that, and that also led into performance art and public performances, and how would you categorize that, because it's art in the public realm, and
Right.
that and that is one of the terms that we use across the industry. That's art in the public realm, that can be identified as public art. So, how do you document that and capture that for that? And I think the thing that we remind ourselves with is that this is a snapshot. This is a moment in time type report.
Yeah.
That it's capturing Albuquerque and public art in 2024, 2023, 2024, a little bit into 2025, based on how the canvassing went, and hopefully in 5 years' time we'll be able to do another type of report and kind of capture Albuquerque and Bernalillo County in 5 years' time and see how that, and then be able to compare that information from this time to next time, how it's grown and how things have evolved. That's the interesting thing about this report too.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention too, because you're talking about how the formal public art programs with the city and the county relate to this study. We're bound by our ordinances to commission or purchase works of art that have a certain life expectancy. You know, we got into the subject of temporary works of public art, but in general, we're looking at pieces that are going to last 20, 30 years is the expectation if we're going to be using capital money or 1% or 1.5% for a project, whereas what the canvassers were looking at were all works of creative expression, regardless of that parameter, but also kind of works outside of what is like a commissioned work. So works of graffiti art, which the team with the census were the term they used is graffiti works, or like a piece, as opposed to a tag. And then working through, definitions of, you find somebody has a beautiful handmade tire sculpture in their front yard, like that is going to be captured. But we're looking at all kinds of works of creative expression and just the diversity of our creative community and our creative economy, recycled art, all kinds of different things that were able to be revealed in this study that I think helps us as arts administrators to really broaden our view of what's happening and just appreciate more. I think it helps us and it helps the public appreciate just what's happening in Albuquerque. And I think one of the ways that it's been described is like, if you have gone snorkeling for the first time, you're looking at the water of the ocean, you might see a little movement or something, you put on your snorkeling goggles, you go underwater, and this world opens up. And that's kind of what happened in this process. You start looking at your community in a totally different way, seeing art everywhere where you may not have really noticed it and appreciated it before. So that's, I think, an awesome part of this process that we've been through. So
it sounds like it raised a lot of really good questions and potential for conversations.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, and it also pointed out areas that we need to focus in on as well. I mean, particularly in Albuquerque, we recognize that there are, as what we've been calling them, public art deserts.
Right.
And there's certain areas, certain pockets of the city that has a certain concentration of artwork. One could, particularly downtown, because we have the city buildings downtown, and we have the convention center and city hall, which all have interior works of art that when you look at a map with a pin on it, it's like, oh man, there's a lot of work there.
Right.
And then we look out on the west side or in certain districts, it's like it's pretty thin because the city starts to spread out a little bit and a little bit less city facilities and whatnot. So we're taking that information and starting to go to those communities and saying, what do you want to see? Where can we include more artwork for you, not just for this section of town, but for everybody to experience it. And so that's one of the key elements that we're getting from the information that we're still deciphering and still kind of going through, because each time you go through the book or you read the data, it's like something new pops out at you. It's like, and that's another conversation. How do we market? How do we reach out to those communities? What's the best avenue to do that? And so that's kind of where we're diving into it as well.
And that must be even, especially in the county, the far reaches, right? And having those conversations with some of those communities that maybe you hadn't had before?
Definitely, yeah. I think one exciting thing about this process was the work in what were called the special zones, so Navajo Nation, the land grant communities, and just making those ties with those communities and coming in and really meeting folks where they live and starting this conversation about what is public art, what does it mean to your community, and I'm hopeful that this can be a starting place for more conversations with those parts of the county that are really underrepresented and really need to have more representation, not only with having public art in those communities, but also expressing or being able to offer those opportunities to people who live in those areas to have public art and apply for these programs that we have, commissions and
to engage
purchases.
them in different ways.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, and I wanted to mention that when we talk about the city of Albuquerque's program, the Bernalillo counties, there's also the state's program, New Mexico Arts. And so as county and city, what is your relationship with the state program?
Yeah, we both
have a pretty strong relationship with them. Whenever they do we're in constant contact. Well, I want to say constant contact, but we have a good relationship in the sense of, if they have programs or a project going on that's happening in Albuquerque, they'll reach out to us and see if there's an opportunity to collaborate on some level where we can pool our funds together. And when they do their call for existing works that usually go into, that are tied into, their funds are tied into improvements or buildings or something, and those works have to go into those places. Normally what we do with the city, if they're in the city facilities, we then officially adopt those into the collection so we can help them track those works, and so we can identify those and be able to say, that's the state, that's the county, or that's the city. And I think it's the same thing really with you, with the county.
Yeah, one thing we've been doing too with both the city, county, and state is giving kind of workshops to different communities and offering kind of tips to apply to the public art calls for art for all three programs.
Right.
So that's been really fun, and I just want to recognize, between Noel with your program and Mandolin and Matt and Meredith and the other folks with the state, it's been a really good synergy and good collaboration to kind of just really these are opportunities that we have, all three of us, to support the creative community. So, really.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's really good to hear that those partnerships, and you're expanding the partnerships. You're building new relationships.
Well, yeah, that goes on to. There's other. It's not just the state. The city of Santa Fe has a public art program. Rio Rancho has a small program. Los Alamos. And Las Cruces, those all have public art programs too, and it's not it's common for us because we are part of the public art network through the Americans for the Arts, but also through PAX, the Public Art Exchange, where we engage with those managers, and they may have a question. They say, we're working on a project. Do you have anything? Have you come across this issue, or have you done something similar that we could bounce some ideas off of? You have a contract template or something that we can we can. So we're also collaborating outside of the county and outside of the city with some of the other surrounding programs that are a little bit newer than the Albuquerque program, which was established in 1978, and the county was in 92. So we've been kind of working with those newer programs as well, trying to help them get their ordinances and or their procedures and or their guidelines up to snuff, and then just to help them with their process.
Yeah,
and because that's also important, because process is kind of similar across the board.
Right. And having the older sibling there to help out is really great. They don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, but it's also great when they are trying to, these newer programs that they're coming with fresh ideas and fresh approaches. And so for us old programs, it's a way to say, we didn't think about it that way. Because sometimes you do get too steeped in your process, and it's sometimes it's good to reevaluate. It's not sometimes, it is good to reevaluate how you're doing things and how you're responding to the community. Because like we said earlier, the field is changing. The landscape is changing, and we need to be able to change with that and evolve and respond at the same time, so that we're just as current and vibrant and responsive to where we're at today.
With that, we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to leave our listeners with a couple things, which I hope you two can help me with, is where do you go from here? So we've got this report. You've been sifting through the data and thinking about new conversations and questions. What's next?
Well, for the county, I think, we really want to take the results and the raw data and get it in the hands of our planning staff with the county, really sit down and talk with our county manager, elected officials. We have had, our county manager came to the presentation that Denicia did at the closing of this census, so she has an awareness of it. But I think really just having our broader community become advocates and then having that data in the hands of people who can utilize it and also use it to leverage funding for future projects. But we also really need to have kind of a goal to maybe do this again. I don't know when, but because it's monumental. But yeah, Matt, I don't know if you want to add anything about kind of the goals.
Yeah. I would say the goals are very similar to what Kent said. For us, we're taking this information, we're bringing it to our board, we're bringing it to our art selection committees, but also our elected officials and our leadership in arts and culture, and trying to expand that aspect of it too, which we can then, through that, reaching out to other departments throughout the city and trying to foster more collaboration between departments, but also making sure that we're reaching out to the community in Albuquerque and those emerging and established artists, and making sure that they're able to participate. And making sure that we kind of are breaking down those barriers that are perceived and sometimes unperceived, to say, no, we're here for you. We're here to help you navigate this and encourage you to dive into this practice and their practice, and emerging, established, just beginning, all that. We're welcome to that.
So there's a lot. So there's a lot of thinking and conversations going on, and it's pretty terrific to be able to see this kind of partnership get to this point. So it's 5 years, basically, that you've been working on this project, and so there's still more to come.
A lot more to come.
Great.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Well, for the next 2 episodes, we'll be hearing from some of the canvassers who actually went out there. I'm excited to hear about their stories, which should be pretty interesting because they were literally boots on the ground.
Yes, that'll be very cool.
They collected the data for the Public Art Census. I will also be talking with city departments, the Office of Neighborhood Coordination, for example, and how they're going to be utilizing this data. And we'll probably bring in some of the county departments and agencies as well, because it'll be good to hear how other departments are translating the data and what they want to do with it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining me in the studio today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Welcome.
Yeah. All right. So, thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about the Bernalillo County Public Art Program, you can visit BernCo.gov, go to Community Services, and within that, Cultural Services, and then you'll find the Public Art Program. Again, the Public Art Census, the report is on both the city and the county website, so you can take a look through that information. You can also find all of this information on our newsletter, which is always posted to the city's website. So thank you for listening. I hope you will join us for our next episode, which will be released in October. So we hope that after you've listened to this podcast, that you will take another look at Albuquerque's public art. Thanks.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Albuquerque Public Art Program, the Public Art Collection, opportunities for artists, and so much more, visit cabq.gov/publicart. To learn more about the Urban Enhancement Trust Fund, visit cabq.gov/UETF. Tune in next time to take another look at the City of Albuquerque Public Art Urban Enhancement Division.